Hi, my name is Gerlitz, and I'm going to give you a glimpse into our work researching the current authentication in German companies, especially focusing on the password policies in use. I worked on this with my co-authors Maximilian Häring and Matthew Smith. When looking at authentication in passwords, there has been a lot of research that, for example, focused on how different policies impact the usability and the security of the resulting passwords. There have also been studies looking at specific elements of policies, for example, how people cope with password expiration. In addition to science, there are organizations that give recommendations to decision makers. There is, for example, the American NIST, which gives specific advice on how policies should look like. There's also the German counterpart, the German Federal Office for Information Security, short PSI. Contrary to NIST, their recommendations are vague, and decision makers need to individually decide what sufficient and appropriate means for their company or use case. Apart from policies, there are also efforts to move away from passwords entirely and use techniques such as biometrics or security keys. So, with the context set, we wondered how the reality in companies actually looks like. To find an answer, we conducted a survey which we distributed over the newsletter sent by the BSI. We aimed for the person responsible for authentication in the company and clearly stated this in the invitation and at the beginning of the survey. We, for example, asked how employees authenticate and how the password policy looks like, who created it, and who or what they were influenced by. The survey was answered by 83 people. Out of the 83 participants, 68 stated that their company uses a company-wide account per employee. All of them allow passwords for authentication, and we were able to extract 64 password policies. 10 participants mentioned biometric authentication, fingerprints, face recognition, and palm vein recognition. And in 29 cases, tokens can be used. 8 companies offered all 3 methods, and 2 others mentioned to use device certificates. Of those companies offering more than passwords, 18 want the different methods to be used as multiple factors. In 5 companies, the employee can decide which one to use. To give you an expression of the 64 policies, and especially their diversity, the following graph shows the policies based on the 3 main elements mentioned by the BSI, namely the minimum length, the maximum age, and the number of required character classes. It has to be noted that not all participants mentioned every of these elements, and some also only gave an unspecific rule, such as a minimum length must be fulfilled. The most common policy, which was mentioned by 7 participants, included a complexity of 3, a minimal length of 8 characters, and a rotation cycle of 90 days. Displaying all policies, we can see the diversity, but also common features that were more popular than others. For example, a maximum password age of 90 days, which was mentioned by 22 participants, or a minimum length of 8 characters, mentioned by 33 participants. The majority requires 3 character classes to be used in the password, and we saw almost every combination, specifically requesting certain classes or accepting a password as long as any 3 classes are included. Around 2/3 of the companies make use of a maximum age, and as a result, 30 companies included a password history of 3 to 24 passwords that cannot be reused. 15 companies even went one step further and had a minimum age. Those ranged from 24 hours to 14 days. It has to be noted that the BSI recommendations at the time of the study included a regular password change. Shortly after the study, this was adjusted, and now the regular changes might only be used if the passwords cannot be checked against leaked ones. We also looked how satisfied the participants were concerning the whole authentication system and what properties might influence a password policy. If you're interested in this, I would like to refer you to our paper. Comparing the seen policies with recommendations and findings from related work, we saw many with the potential to be user-unfriendly, while perhaps not even leading to secure passwords. The question remains why this is the case, and how to help decision makers in general. Is the vagueness of the BSI recommendations practical? Is it good to leave room for individual decisions? Or is one recommendation, like given by NIST, already sufficient for most cases? And, considering the adjusted BSI recommendations, what will happen in the following years? How and when will they be applied? With these open questions, I would like to end my talk, and thank you all for listening. I'm happy to answer your questions.